Among many things from the Suns that caught my eye and attention from their win on Sunday at Madison Square Garden against the Knicks was their after timeout process. And in terms of the season as a whole, they're third in points per game from this context after timeout. And after timeout is inclusive of obviously after timeouts, but also includes beginning of quarter sets because it's essentially the between quarter session operating as a timeout as well, where you're able to get a set playoff. And in that context, after timeout, the Suns are third at 14.5 points per game. And I think that's just a context of offense that where the discipline, the nuance in terms of approach from the timeout at the timeout plays being called, and then obviously the execution within it. I think those are all things that the Suns can really dominate from, especially when they're whole, because there's a level of unpredictability in terms of not knowing who's going to have the ball and how they're going to go about even getting the ball after a timeout. There's just a certain level of nuance that they can get into in unpredictability, and I just like to see that from them because that just makes things a little bit easier having a set play called. So let's go ahead and dive into a couple of reps from Sunday against the New York Knicks after timeout. First rep here, I talk about optimizing and using Yusuf Nurkic as the piece that he is, the uniqueness that he brings to the floor in terms of his playmaking and his processing of a defense and ability to just be skilled as a center and being able to do things as a hub from the handoffs to in delay action to initiating the offense to playing out of the post and things like that. Optimizing him is optimizing the offense. And we see just that here after timeout. And we're going to see them get into some split action off of a post-up for him. So we see Eric Gordon pitch it to him. We see the split screen, brush screen set here from Eric Gordon for Yuta Watanabe. And because they're not switching, Eric Gordon's man, Dante DiVincenzo, looking at it from Nurkic's perspective, DiVincenzo is gapping off of Eric Gordon. That means that if Eric Gordon does his job in setting his screen for Watanabe, he's going to be wide open getting into this handoff. And as we see, they're not switching because DiVincenzo is gapped off. That's the telltale sign right there. That means Watanabe is coming off free, and he's able to knock down a wide open three. But as we rewind it back and just kind of look at it a little bit more, talked about the switching. Look at Nurkic's man. This is essentially him treating it like drop coverage. Mitchell Robinson's up to touch on the catch for Watanabe. He's going to be reverting back like drop coverage to protect the basket. And as we bring it back a little bit more, and look at a little bit more of the nuance within it all, I love on the second side as we look at the bottom right corner of the screen, I love this exchange from Okogie and Nasir Little. Again, just little things within it. I love to see them leveraging and optimizing the second side in case things do break down. Just making the defenders toggle roles always helps to generate some type of advantage for you. And then as we come back to the primary action, lastly, looking at the attention to detail, Yusuf Nurkic is, guess what? A right-handed player. So getting it to him where he's going to be optimized as a playmaker with his right shoulder free is extremely just detailed. And in addition to that, guess what? Yuta Watanabe is a left-handed shooter. So pairing Nurkic and Watanabe together to get into the split action just is really extremely effective because it's putting both players in their optimized positions in terms of Eric Gordon being able to set the screen, but specifically Watanabe coming off with his left hand with pace. Everything with him, with being a left-handed shooter and player, is going to be a lot more organic and natural. And he can play with more pace getting into it. And then obviously with Nurkic being right-handed, his right hand is going to be free to get into this handoff, and that's easy for him to play make from should that play break down and they have to get into something else. All just great attention to detail and processing from the Suns, enabling for them to get a three-pointer and create a little bit more separation after the timeout here. Next, we're going to see them get into something that they do quite often, which is their elbow action. But I love that at this juncture of the game, Devin Booker wasn't in his best groove because of a handful of the things that the Knicks were doing defensively in terms of pressure and activity and just really trying to mess up his rhythm. So this was a very astute call. Again, nothing nuanced or crazy here. This is just something we see them get into often. It's their elbow action. And then we're going to see them go from elbow to veer. So we get the elbow cross screen here from Nurkic. Then we get this screen here and spread pick and roll from Nurkic for Goodwin This is just the Suns respacing and moving their chess pieces around the board, ultimately to get into the action that they really want to, which is this middle pin down on the veer screen here from Nurkic. So a veer screen is a screen set on ball, immediately followed by a screen being set off ball. We see the screen on ball there from Nurkic. And then we're going to see a quick middle pin down here for Devin Booker in the middle third of the floor. He's going to just come off, and look at where this catch is, right in the mid-range. This is his office. He doesn't have to do any dribbling. He doesn't have to exert much energy past coming off of the screen and keeping his man attached to the hip. And because of the spacing and because of the spot that he's catching his pass at, he doesn't have to do anything but catch and raise without thinking. And he knocks that down and starts to generate some rhythm prior to a big second half that he had. And I just like that, again, looking at the details and looking at the context over the course of the game, he wasn't at his best in terms of rhythm. So getting him a rhythm look from a spot where he loves to operate from without having to dribble, which is very astute. And then next rep here, this one was a lot of fun in the fourth quarter. This is the beginning of the fourth quarter, their first possession. And we're going to see them get into some ghost action here with Yuta Watanabe. And this is, I'm saying this with exclamation points because I love that they're using or beginning to use their shooters as screeners, but also as ghost screeners. Because of the attention that shooters are going to have, whether that be Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Eric Gordon even. Any of these guys can, or even Grayson Allen, can get into ghost screens, and eventually it's going to start getting a reaction out of defenses. It doesn't do it as much here, but this is also just dummy action to get into what they really want to do here. I just love seeing it layered into their process, and especially after a timeout. So we see, again, Watanabe setting this ghost screen for Jordan Goodwin, and now we're going to see after the exchange from Devin Booker and Watanabe in the middle third of the floor, we're now going to see Devin Booker with the reverse pivot, and now he's going to flow off of an exit screen. And this is, again, just very good processing from the Suns using Devin Booker off the ball. We saw the pressure and the things like that that were making it tough for them to get into their offense at times when Booker was initiating. In the second half, they got into a lot more of him working off the ball, and this was yet another example here. I love the cleverness with the ghost screen, and then I love using Devin Booker off ball, off a screen, this time coming off an exit. And again, I think Eubanks could do a better job with this screen. Nonetheless, Devin Booker does his job coming off with pace and then a tight curl to keep his man in a position of trailing. As you can see on the catch, it's going to be DiVincenzo trailing, and he's all the way on his backside. And then Devin Booker is going to ultimately be able to get into a quick one dribble, rhythm dribble, pull up, knocks that down, and then you can see the point to the bench as like a salute and a hat tip to the coaching staff for that play call to start the fourth. And then lastly, this one was fun as well. This was just taking advantage of something that they picked up on earlier in the game. They got into some handback or flip action where Devin Booker is used as essentially a decoy, and he flips it back to the guy that's pitching it to him, and then he's able to get downhill from that. They got into that a couple of times in the third quarter, and they were able to manipulate some solid shot quality as a result of those plays, and they get right back into it here at ATO in the fourth quarter. This time going to it from the middle third of the floor. So we see Devin Booker getting his middle pin down for a catch at the nail area of the floor in the middle third. Now, everybody on the court is going to be thinking, oh, this is just a Devin Booker ISO coming. No, it's not, though. We're going to see him flip it back to Eric Gordon. And look at how Emmanuel quickly gaps off of this initial pass from Eric Gordon to Devin Booker. He's gapping off here. This space here is a telltale sign for Devin Booker that this flip back is going to be there for Eric Gordon. He does that, and now look at the downhill advantage that's going to be created. It gets even a reaction, not just out of Julius Randle here, who's going to be at the top of the screen guarding Keita Diop, who's in the top corner, but it's also going to get a reaction out of Mitchell Robinson, who's guarding Yusuf Nurkic at the opposite block, or elbow, of where Devin Booker is. All of that downhillness is going to have just a great level of gravity from Eric Gordon off of this flip back from Devin Booker. Now they're going to be playing in the advantage from that. You get downhill, you get a reaction out of the defense. Now you're playing within the advantage. The Suns did a great job generating closeouts galore, especially in the second half to play off of. And we see another one here. So the Knicks are going to go with a peel switch as we see Julius Randle step over from the corner, cut off the drive to try to flatten out action. We see Emmanuel quickly peeling off of Eric Gordon and trailing. And he's going to go to close out, a long-distance closeout on Keita Diop. KBD is going to do an excellent job here. Again, playing off of that closeout by attacking it. Catch, jab. He's going to steal the leverage, get back downhill. That's a second drive. Eric Gordon is going to do a great job respacing here to around the elbow area to make himself available as Kata-Base Diop comes off of that, and he's going to re-engage his original matchup, Julius Randle. He's going to pitch it back to Eric Gordon. He's wide open. Does a great job making Emmanuel quickly go from one closeout long distance to another closeout here. As we see him trying to get back to Eric Gordon. Gordon does a great job attacking that closeout, and he's going to get a layup. Great job from the Suns just playing within their advantages, and even more so creating advantages and moving their chess pieces around the board strategically. ATO against the Knicks. I think that when Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant also get back into the mix, there's going to be a level of unpredictability that this team can have. And after timeout scenarios, they can really be a weapon that they can dictate with, especially in fourth quarters and even more so in crunch time and general play in the playoffs. And just seeing them kind of process through that in nuanced ways.